What's up, folks? We're back with the 17th BioLayne Video Log, and guess what? This one is not about metabolic damage. I probably had you going there for a second. Although I have plenty to talk about with regards to that. It feels like it'll never end. Mostly ranting about terrible coaches. But we've got time for that. There'll be time for that in the future. But anyway, before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping stuff. Things are going very well. Many of you know my wife is pregnant right now. She's at 8.5 months. Going to be having our firstborn, Robert James Norton, and he is due July 5th. So we're gearing up for that. Super excited about that. Super nervous about that. But could not be more thrilled. And if he's anything like his mother, he's going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to meeting my son and holding him for the first time. Also just had our BioLayne LLC VIP camp, the second annual VIP camp, and that was awesome. That was amazing. Really crazy, the response. Last year we had 16 people, and we flew in. I'm going to talk about it, but unless you were there, you can't really understand. All right, 16 people came to the camp. We flew in experts and pros like Dave Gooden, Paul Revelia, Alberto Nunez. This year we flew in also Philip Ricardo Jr., Dr. Joe, Brooke Erickson, a lot of different people. And so we would have seminars with these experts. Ryan Dorris was also there, Jeremy Lineker, Ben Escrow, like top level experts. So you get seminars all day. Dr. Jacob Wilson. I'm thinking more people as it just rattles off my head. So you have seminars with just top level PhD experts. And then you go train hardcore training with some of the best natural bodybuilders and figure competitors in the world. And the first year we had people say, wow, you know, this was a life-changing experience. It was so crazy. And this year we had more of the same. Had people say it was the greatest weekend of their life. It was amazing. Now had one of my clients, she told me that, you know, now she wants to go to graduate school. And said she wanted to coach, which is awesome. We could use more great coaches. So anyway, that was a ton of fun, and you can tell I'm still like real fired up about it. So that cannot come back fast enough. Literally one of the most fun weekends of the year, and unless you're here, you just can't understand how awesome it is. With that said, and kind of talking about coaching and that sort of things, Dr. Joe's talk at our camp was called Don't Bleep Up Your Peak Week. I'd rather not drop the F-bomb on my video logs. So it was Don't F Up Your Peak Week. And it was all about, you know, stuff I'd known for years, just from working with him. He's my first coach. And did all through my own research. But I realized that not a lot of people don't have this information. So I decided that my next video log would be about peak week for competitors, but also for people who maybe get gurued into thinking there's like a magical way to look leaner so fast, you know. Just cut your water, cut your sodium. In fact, you know, a lot of these gurus out there, they act like their peak week is like something magical, you know, some secret. You know, it's a secret. I've got the secret to getting you dry. Let me ask if that secret sounds anything like the following. Early in the week, you train depletion workouts, you load sodium, you load water, you cut carbs, and then later in the week, you cut water, you cut sodium, you load carbs, you load potassium, you add a diuretic, and you stop training. Is that ringing any bells? Probably is. And what's the result of that? Well, let me ask you this. How many times have you heard, man, I looked like crap a week out, but that peak week fixed everything and I looked awesome? Crickets. But how many times have you heard, man, I looked so great a week out, but I looked like crap on show day. I couldn't get a pump. I wasn't full. Like, what happened? What happened to my physique that was the week before was great? And the thing is, you are not smarter than your body. With regards to fluid dynamics, those are regulated on a minute-to-minute basis. I mean, your fluid dynamics control your blood volume. Blood volume controls your blood pressure, controls your blood delivery to your heart. That's kind of a critical thing. Plus, also, I always tell people I'm not a big fan of huge manipulations in peak week. Why? Because I'm not a big fan of sacrificing 50% to try to get 5%. Or even more like sacrificing 50% to try to get 2%. You've got to be shredded. If you're not shredded heading into peak week, it's not going to matter what you do. Sure, little subtle fluctuations can make a difference. But I've seen more people screw up great physiques doing drastic things in the last week because they thought there was some secret to being stage ready, being stage lean. I can tell you that I have never had one person take a diuretic. I have never had one person cut their water. I have had people slightly reduce sodium. I have never had anybody cut their sodium. Okay? We're going to talk about why those are a bad idea. First off, because fluid dynamics are regulated on a minute-to-minute basis, whatever you try to do, your body is going to fight you. With regards to water, we really want a lot of water inside the cell and not a lot outside the cell. Well, you're in your natural state, you have a lot of water inside the cell. It's like 70% and then like 30% is outside. That's a really good ratio. It's when you start fouling with stuff that it gets bad. People will say, oh, well, I was holding water on stage, or this judge said I was holding water. No. Unless you had edema in your hands, rings around your ankles from where your socks were, that's holding water, okay? You didn't lose enough body fat. I'll let that sink in for a second. You weren't lean enough, okay? I was holding water is a euphemism for you were not lean enough, for I was not lean enough. Get lean, okay? Get shredded. If you look great a week out, I can promise you, why not just look like that on stage? But if you cut water, sure, you will lose some water out of the subcutaneous layer. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But you will also, your body needs to maintain that gradient of 30% and 70%. So you will lose water out of the intracellular layer as well, and actually in a greater proportion to maintain that ratio, that 30-70 ratio. So what happens is you lose water out of the subcutaneous layer, but you also lose it out of the intracellular layer, and what happens is the ratio doesn't change, you're just flatter overall, okay? I couldn't get a pump on show day, there you go. Cutting sodium is actually, I think, even a bigger mistake than cutting water. And we are going to go to the official BioLayne wipe-off board for this one. Oh, I know you guys were waiting for me to bring this bad boy back. That's right. Check it out. Okay, so this will be cool. Let me get this so we can get it right on there. Okay. Alright, so this is a study that was done, I believe, at Harvard. The Army wanted to examine what would happen with electrolyte depletion. So they had people cut their sodium, okay, for 6 days, and they monitored the results. We have blood sodium here, urinary sodium here, and aldosterone here. Okay, aldosterone is a hormone that causes you to reabsorb sodium in water, makes you retain water. Okay, so what happened? Well, here are their initial levels, all right? 139 milliequivalents per liter of blood sodium. Very, very standard for blood sodium. It's usually around 140. Very standard. Urinary sodium was at 217 millimoles per day excreted. And aldosterone was at 10.4 nanograms per 100 milliliters of fluid. Okay, all very standard. Now check out blood sodium after 6 days of sodium depletion. It doesn't change. It doesn't change at all. I mean, it goes down by 1, but that's not even significant. It doesn't. It's perfectly conserved. Okay, so you've cut a bunch of sodium, and yet you didn't even impact your blood sodium. Ta-da! Because guess what? Your blood sodium, turns out it's critically important. So how did it not change? Well, what happened was, check out your urinary sodium. It's 10 times less. Your body just basically stops excreting sodium, okay? And it's reabsorbing it. Well, how does it reabsorb it? Ta-da! Aldosterone. Aldosterone, remember that? We talked about hormone making me retain water? Aldosterone? Yeah, this is it. Check out aldosterone after 2 days of cutting sodium. Boom, doubled. You doubled your levels of aldosterone, and after 3 days, it's tripled, over tripled. Well, when do you typically start cutting sodium in a contest prep peak week? Oh, you cut it 2 days out. That's right, Thursday. You start cutting it Thursday. Oh, well, guess what's happening when you're on stage? The day you're going to get on stage, you have double aldosterone levels when you cut it 2 days before a show. Again, why did I not look as good on show day? It's because you did all this stuff that messed it up. You had it good and you messed it up. Have you also heard people say, you know what, I went out after my show and I was flat on stage, I couldn't get a pump, I had no vascularity, I went out and I had a cheat meal and man, I looked fantastic. You hear that all the time, a lot from IFBB guys. Hear that all the time. And the conclusion from that typically is, well, I just didn't carb up enough. What do you mean you didn't carb up enough? You were eating like 500-600 grams of carbs the day before and the day of show day. No, you carved up enough. What happened was when you went out and had that cheat meal, you stopped worrying about sodium, you stopped worrying about water intake, and you finally allowed yourself to fill out and become full and hard. So it's amazing. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But people keep doing this over and over, and they keep getting subpar results. A fully hydrated muscle fiber looks hard, full, and very, very separated. When you are depleted, muscle tissue depleted is soft, spongy, and actually, especially with figure competitors I've seen, is if you're like low water, low sodium, you will actually get that like, I think Ava Cowan or Brooke Erickson called it the butt hang, where your glutes don't look full, they're kind of saggy. I've seen this a lot. In fact, Ava said the best her glutes ever looked was when we added quite a bit of sodium about 2 hours out before her show. One other thing about sodium that's very interesting, people talk about cutting sodium and loading potassium. If you load potassium, if you get your potassium to sodium ratio too high, it will actually cause you to retain water. In your distal tubule of your kidney, it senses that ratio. If potassium to sodium is too high, it will cause you to retain water. Also, too much potassium can kill you. How do you think they give lethal injections? Ta-da! Potassium chloride. If you get your potassium levels too high, it will hyperpolarize your cardiac cells, and it can stop your heart. Okay, so loading potassium, stupid and useless. Sodium helps you be full. Now you don't want to add in a ton of sodium a day before a show because you will get some fluid shift. But there's no reason to cut it. In fact, What's also interesting about cutting sodium is typically you're cutting sodium at the same time you're loading carbs during these guru peak weeks. Well, the glucose transporter in your small intestine is sodium dependent. So they've actually shown that a low sodium diet will downregulate that glucose transporter. So now you are loading glucose, restricting sodium, that transporter is downregulated, you're getting less glucose into circulation, more is going to be retained within the intestine, and guess what happens to solutes in the intestine? They don't just sit there, they draw water in. So you're drawing water into your gut now, and it's going to make you feel bloated. I've heard this too. People also have GI distress on show day. Finally, one other thing to consider with sodium: when you drop sodium and you drop water and you're adding a diuretic and you're doing all this stuff, sodium, by sodium depletion causing aldosterone to double, you're going to be reabsorbing sodium, like we showed, because your urinary sodium goes down. You're reabsorbing all this sodium. Well, that has to be reabsorbed with water, okay? And when you reabsorb it with water, you're reabsorbing it, but since your sodium is low, your blood pressure is more likely to be reduced because you're depleting it. Now you don't have the pressure within your vascular system to hold that water there, and it starts leaching into the interstitial layer. So guess what you've done? You've put water exactly where you don't want it. Also, let's just be real. Cutting sodium, loading potassium, adding a diuretic, all the stuff for a plastic trophy. You could die, okay? I know for a fact, I've seen people pass out backstage. I know in Texas a few weeks ago, there was a lady that had a stroke. I mean, there's like, it just shocks me what people will do for a plastic trophy. And it's not needed. If you get lean enough, you will look great on stage. My clients typically, in fact, a lot of my figure gals, judges will tell them they look too hard, and what diuretic did they take? Well, they didn't take a diuretic, and that's why they looked full and hard, okay? So if you guys want more information, I would really suggest watching my Peak Week video series on bodybuilding.com, and I'll put the link in the description, because it's a full breakdown of kind of what I recommend for Peak Week. But I just wanted to run through again for one of my video logs exactly why it's so important not to make drastic changes in Peak Week. I'd rather have somebody 95%, 100% of the time than, you know, do these crazy fluctuations. And also, it's kind of that guru mentality that you're so arrogant that you think that there's tens of thousands of processes in the body going on that control a lot of this stuff. We can control a few of them. The idea that you can do all these little manipulations and come out at a single time point to the minute is just so arrogant and asinine. Yes, I make adjustments during Peak Week, but it's subtle adjustments. It's subtle changes. It's all within the realm of what is normal for that person's body. So don't F up your Peak Week. And I'm leaving you with visual evidence of people who I've either prepped or who I know for a fact did not cut water, did not cut sodium, did not take a diuretic. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video log, and we'll see you again soon.